Or
We'll
could
go
you?
90% ad lib and 10% questions. but
Okay,
90%
very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, good. So the point is, if I miss something that you think should be included, that's
Yeah, I'll
that's
say
all
so,
I'm
yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
Yes, I could see them. He's colorizing them there. He's setting the colored standard there.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to step outside for about 5 minutes and see if I can quietly sneak back in.
Can we start?
Banging the door.
Oh, that just to support the Denise joke. When I was born in Minnesota in St. Cloud, that on my original birth certificate, all they had was the letter baby long. I was not named right away, and then later on they corrected that. But the original birth certificate that I got, baby long, and then they crossed that
Baby,
off.
long, male.
Yeah, that's
and
all.
that was it.
Just baby.
That's funny.
Okay, let's do this. Ready?
That didn't sound crisp enough, but okay.
Okay, one more. I'll do the clap then.
Okay. I
I'm
guess.
gonna step outside and let them get started. Then I'm gonna sneak back in.
Okay, so if you want to get started, we're here with Mr. Don Long,
Correct.
and he is going to tell us all about his life from day one up to the present.
Oh my. Well, let's see. From day one, that would have been in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota, on June 22nd, 1921. My parents obviously lived in the area. My grandparents lived in a little town very, very near there. Across the river, in fact, in Sauk Rapids. My mother's parents, my dad's parents lived in St. Cloud proper. Let's see, I'm just trying to think if there's anything
What did your dad do for a living?
At that time, he was a paper stock cutter. He worked in a tablet factory, and they made paper products and stuff. Basically, cutting paper stock for tablets. That's what his job was at the time. The early childhood, I don't remember too much. I can recall when I was in kindergarten or right after that I burned myself rather badly. A friend of mine, we were living in the Minneapolis area. It was early spring, I recall. We had some friends over. They were out in the front playing catch with a softball, and this friend of mine, he was about 5'6" like me, and we got the wild idea we're going to start a little fire in the corner of the house there, and we did, and it started to get away from us, and the grass was dry, and my pants caught fire. I got burned very badly up the back of my legs, but they got the whole thing put out, and all I have left from that is a bunch of kind of bad scars on my leg, but I really lucked out on that one.
Parents were not amused.
No, not amused. And we were afraid, of course, we knew we were going to catch it, and so we didn't want to tell them, so we kept trying to put that fire out by ourselves, try stamping it out the way we'd seen the adults do, and that's how my clothes got on fire. That I was wearing long underwear at the time, I recall that, and all that just started burning, and well, anyway, that was about the only thing I can remember from that far back. That I went to various schools. We moved around a lot. Dad, in his work, would work at one factory for a while, then another. And of course, all of this, we're talking now late 20s, early 30s, a depression kind of starting. And finally, then we were, as I recall, we were living in Davenport, Iowa, and Dad and Mom were both working down there. And for the reason, I was in the 4th grade at the time, and they let me stay with my grandparents up in Sauk Rapids. This is my mother's family, for the entire school year when I was in the 4th grade. And this is a memory that has been dear to my heart, well, for all these years. I had a wonderful, wonderful time with them. They were most gracious people. My mother was one of 6, as I recall. One of my uncles was just a couple of years older than I was, and I just had a very, very nice 4th grade year. by living with my grandparents. And also that a little bit young, but away from your parents is, not, I think, not always a bad thing too when you're in good circumstances. But that was one of the highlights of my life, I've always felt. That grade school, various other schools and stuff moving around, but I had one very fortunate thing, I think, that when I got into high school, we went back up to where we had previously lived in the northern Minnesota area near Barnum, where I went to the Barnum High School, and I was there for the full 4 years. And to me, for a boy growing up, any child growing up, the high school, early teen years, extremely formative, and to have a stable environment that astute, perhaps. It was the height of the Depression, and everybody was poor, but we didn't really know it because everybody was poor, so nobody thought too much about it. And we weren't hungry type poor. I mean, we lived on a small farm, and we had normally always had adequate food. So I do not, in my lifetime, at that time, ever recall of going hungry, except of my own foolishness, and that happened. I mean, if I was out with kids or camping or doing something by myself, yeah, I got hungry. But otherwise, there was food if I would stay home to eat it and stuff. That.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm the oldest of 6. That I have excuse me, 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I have 1 brother. Yeah, he's the only one left now. One just died last fall again. So that he, the youngest brother. But I did have the sibling, and that also. When I fast forward a little bit, but the girl I married, Madeline, that she was an only child, and we talked about it a little bit. But I feel there is an advantage in life of having siblings to love and hate. I guess that's what it means, because you sure as heck fight with them plenty of time. But I think all in all, it's good for you. But those who don't have siblings, maybe they don't miss it. I'm not real sure that there are many one-child families I know. In fact, with my wife and I, we just had the one child. She lives here in Napa now too. Well, let's see.
Okay, so you're in high school.
What's that?
You're in high school.
Okay, I'm in high school. Thank you. One thing about the high school that I like to discuss, I'll say rather proudly, that when I was in school, our football team, and this is the Barnum High School football team, they had the unique distinction of having a season of football in which our team was neither defeated, nor tied, nor scored upon. As I recall it, at the end of the year, the score was 163-0 for the games we played with the local schools around there. I suppose it's been equaled since, but it was quite a record. And my contribution to that whole effort was that I did not play on the football team, because I know I would have fouled up someplace, because I've done that so many other times later in my life, which brings me to now fast forward again, that I'm an officer on a ship and we're stationed at the Philippines. They sponsored a dinner for us, and as part of the, quote, entertainment, we had a softball game with our officers against the Filipino officers. I was, as I recall, out in center field. The score was tied. The Filipinos were at bat. I was out in center field. Fly comes right out to me. Game, I missed it. So they won the game. But that is the way I relate to the football team too. If I'd have been on the team, that they never would have achieved that score, because I'm just not too athletically inclined.
So
that's all.
you didn't play any sports in high school at all?
No organized sports at all. I enjoy playing sports participating on an amateur basis, but as far as I was in high school, I was active in musical things, not good, but active, and plays and drama and that sort of stuff. But
Did you play an instrument?
I beg your pardon?
Did you play an instrument?
In the school band I did, yes. We didn't have any money for one, and the school janitor, he had an old E-flat bass, a tuba. And I played that in the high school band, marching band, and then we had a little German band, just a little 5-piece thing that we'd go out as kind of a pep band with the basketball and football team and play at the different schools. And I played that. Since I like to think I'm musical, but I'm not talented. Right now, back in the other room, I have an accordion, a keyboard, a violin, a mandolin, a couple of mouth organs, and I can play all of them, but none of them well. But I still play for my own
Sure.
amusement.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying it.
And my guitar too. I got a guitar in
Wow.
there too.
Is there anything you don't play?
Yeah, I should be better, but now my arthritis and stuff is acting up, so I say that's part of it, but I never was that good.
No.
Okay, we're in high school. Got out of high school, graduated in 1939. The last couple of years before 39, if I recall correctly, 39 was, I think, when Hitler invaded Poland, where things were starting to get pretty darn tight over there. Yeah, and in school, we talked a little bit about this. I'm sure some people remember, basically, as I recall it, that Roosevelt wanted us to get into the war to help the Allies, but the national mood was quite a bit against it. However, we all saw, I think, we saw it, war clouds on the horizon, that Hitler, nothing seemed to be stopping him. He came and, of course, went through France, and I can really find sympathy for the British, who each day didn't know what was going to happen. But we figured we would one day get into it. And so when I got out of high school, I looked for local work. There was a steel mill up in Duluth, and sometimes they hired, but I couldn't get in up there. And jobs were very, very scarce. That could do a little bit of work in the woods. I went up into the CC camps in, let's see, when was this? 1940, as I recall, in January of 40, and you could have a 6-month tour up there. The CC camps, just a teeny bit of history, that was one of Roosevelt's programs to try and give young men a chance to do some kind of work that would help out at their homes there, because most of us were still living with our families, and give them some, quote, work experience. Of our salary, we got $30 a month, of course, in board and room, and $30 a month, and 20 of that was sent directly to our parents to help them out at home. And they said by getting us out of our own homes, that was one less mouth to feed at the table. And although it's difficult to imagine now, there were times when things were a heck of a lot tighter in this country as far as food and necessities for families than I think they are now, although I'm sure there are still some problems. But so I went up to the CC camps for that 6 months. During that period that I was up there, I took a correspondence course from the I remember the name yet, the Northwest Radio and Television Institute in Minneapolis. It was one of these by the mail order classes, and we studied radio and television, electricity, radio, and television. This was in 1940. TV was an unknown thing to the general public, but at the school that I went to, that was taking the correspondence course from, they did have a small television station. And for those of you who can remember things from back there, that it was a scanning disc method. It never did catch on commercially. But we did, when I got down to the school, we did get